up, my miners of intelligence and consciousness? I'm Rick Brooks, and this is Rick's Mind. Today with me, I have guest Lael Wilcox, who is an ultra-endurance bike rider and racer. What's going on, Lael? How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, and I appreciate you being here. I'm very excited. So I think I found that the best way to start podcasts is to start from the beginning and figure out how you got into this world. And, and then also if you could kind of explain for people that are not familiar with your sport, a little bit about what it is. I mean, it seems self-explanatory, but there's a lot more that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Lael. I'm from Alaska. I always did sports growing up, but I just rode a bike like around my neighborhood, just kind of kid stuff until I was in college. I got a job and it was 4 miles away and I had to get there. I've never owned a car. I've never driven. So I got a bike as like my first vehicle because I was like, oh, it's too far to walk. Got to get a bike. So I started riding to and from work, and just doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, if I could ride to work, I could ride all over the city. I could ride to the next city to visit my sister. And this was in probably 2006 or so. And then like on that first long ride, which was something like 40, 50 miles, I'd never done anything like that. I was like, I don't even think I could make it. While I was riding, I was like, if I could ride to the next city, I could ride across the country. So within a couple months, I was doing that. And it just like kind of took over my life where I was like, I just want to travel on my bike. I want to connect the dots, see all of the US by bike. And then that led me to traveling in Europe and South Africa and the Middle East. And I was working at restaurants and bike shops to save money for half the year and then go travel for the other half. But I didn't really see it as a sport. I was just like, oh, it's a really inexpensive way to travel. And it just like, it never got old, just to see the way people lived and to spend all that time outside, spend all that time thinking. So that was kind of my intro into the sport. And then while I was riding, I was always looking for interesting places to go. And so a lot of the resources were finding like these race routes. So bike pack racing, which is what I do, is like basically like racing across long distances, self-supported. Everyone starts together. Whoever gets to the end point first wins. So some of these races can take weeks. Like I've raced across the US from Oregon to Virginia, raced down the Rockies from Canada to Mexico. And I was riding these routes just to travel. And then I ended up on a trip in Israel and realized I'd still be in the country when they were hosting the race. And I was like, well, why not? I'll just give it a shot. And I was the only woman. I just had my, very kind of low end touring bike and setup and a cotton t-shirt. And these guys thought I was just a total joke. They're like, what are you doing here? And, I was like, well, I don't know, I just want to try it out. And then, by the end of the first day, I was winning the whole race by like 25 miles. And they were like, what? Like, how are you doing that? What are you doing? And I was so excited. And I was just like, kind of found the thing that I was like, that I'm actually good at. I just had no idea I could do that because I'd never raced before. So this was like 7 years ago. And then since then, I've just been kind of riding and racing and fitting in as many different things as I can, but all on the bike. And it's just been so cool to, kind of meet people around the world and see places just by bike and kind of make my own connection. So right now I'm in Spain. I finished a 900-mile road race 2 days ago. So I totally lost my voice. But it was so cool. It was like these guys that are locals in Catalonia asked, hey, can you come do our race? And it's the first year. And they have so much heart for it. And they just basically made this route in the Pyrenees and all of Catalonia, which is kind of northeastern Spain, just to show the places that they love the most. And I mean, what a gift for me to like come from the US and just be able to go do that and see these places and get to know these people. And in a place I've never been here before. I'd never ridden my bike in Spain. So it's been super cool, but I'm definitely toast. So exhausted.
Yeah, I bet. So when you say self-supported, right? You've got a tent, you've got your, can you take us through kind of some of your gear? I'm assuming it's got to be you're in the ultralight camp, the ultralight way of things.
the thing is there aren't like any rules of what you need to bring or don't need to bring. So it's like, but you can't get any help along the way. So you couldn't have like a friend bring you equipment. You can't stay at somebody's house, but you can use like open resources. So like hotels, restaurants, shops, that kind of thing. Like you can use something that's available to anybody. So people make different strategies on what they bring. This past ride, I brought like a bivy, which is basically just a plastic bag to sleep in, a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad. My friend that was racing only brought like a space blanket. And I was like, oh God, that's rough.
How did that work
because
out?
you're sleeping on the ground. So you get cold. She's like, well, I could sleep for about 40 minutes and then I'd have to get moving because you just start shaking. I've done that before too. I'm like, oh, it's so light. And then you like, at night you're like shaking on the ground. You're like, well, that wasn't worth it. So you kind of have to figure out what you actually need and what you don't need. But of course you want it to be as light as possible because it's going to be faster, especially up all the climbs. I mean, this past race, we climbed 80,000 feet.
Jeez.
Everest is like 27,000, it's like we're doing like 3 Everests.
Yeah. Well, how are you fueling your body during this? Like what are you training for these races? Like what are you doing?
I just ride. I ride all the time, so I'm always pretty much ready to go. But then, the food thing is pretty interesting because you have to find it along the way. So then you really find out what's available in different countries. Like in Spain, they have these amazing Spanish tortillas, like the egg and potato dish. So I would just buy those and just be eating them on my bike. I would buy like pints of ice cream and then carry it, let it melt and drink it. And I was like, oh, that's delicious.
Oh man, I love you. This is great.
Because you can't eat enough. It's like I would like look and be like, you burned like 14,500 calories today. It's like there's no way you could eat that much. No. But basically you eat as much as you can and then you eat a lot afterward and it works out.
Yeah, definitely. Are you just shedding weight during these races? And like, how depleted are you how depleted are you towards the end? Like what is going to keep you going? Where does your mind get to towards the end of a race? Is it in a dark place?
No, because it's like I decided to be out there, so it's like it still has to be fun. And the other part of these races is generally there's no entry fee and there's no prize money. So it's like you're not going to win anything. You're just out there for the sport of it, because you want to be there. So it's like, there are hard moments, but like I try not to sink too far into the negativity. Are you guys still there?
Yeah. Can you hear us? Yeah, there was a little bit roboted out for a second, but you're good now.
But the longer the race, kind of the more depleted you get. Really, the worst part probably is the sleep deprivation, because it's like you kind of have to cut sleep, spend more time riding. There's no real way to make up that time. So,
no, definitely.
And that's super unhealthy. Not sleeping is like the worst thing you could possibly do for yourself. So
how many hours are you on the bike?
I try to like eat all my meals while riding. So I'm like eating like a burger and I'm just pedaling along. Anything you can take to go. But then it's like, I do have to sleep. I also have to like get off my bike to pee. I have to like change my clothes, but the thing is like trying to be efficient with time. So doing like multitasking, spending as much time riding as possible. But then it's like, it's always a strategy of like, when and where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to buy food? All these things kind of come into consideration. And I've been doing this for, I guess, 7 years now. And I used to like really cut the sleep, and I've kind of gone back to like, I try to sleep like 4 hours a night if I can, because I just feel so much better. I ride faster. I enjoy it so much more, so I've kind of found a balance there.
So you think you're riding for like what, 20 hours a day, maybe?
Maybe 18, because it's like then there's all these other moments of, you have to go in the shop or you get a flat tire or whatever, and you have to deal with that, which sucks.
So if your bike breaks down, you're self-supported, you need to fix that. So are you bringing tools as well?
A bit, but not too much, because it's like you can't bring everything, but it's like enough, like usually the main thing is like keeping air in your tires, because like a lot of the other stuff, if it doesn't work perfectly, you can still keep moving. Like, oh, your shifting's not great, your brakes, something's going on. But then like this past race, I was riding through a tunnel at 1 a.m. and I hit a huge pothole. Immediately, both my tires just went dead flat. Like I slammed down on the rims, and it was like in the dark, and I was like, oh no, like I'm in the middle of nowhere. And then I had to like sit on the side of this huge tunnel for an hour and a half, just trying to fix them. And the tires were like torn. The tubes were torn. I was like trying to patch them, and it was on a road bike. So you have to run pretty high pressure because they're pretty skinny tires. I got it to like basically like beach ball pressure. I was like, good enough. I was like, I'll just keep going. I'll like try to find a bike shop because I have to buy new tires. Like I still have like, I don't know, 350 miles to go. I was like, I'm not going to make it to the finish on this, but at least I can move forward. And so basically I did that road for like another 3 hours, slept for an hour on the side of the road, and then got up in the morning and found a bike shop, and they had what I needed. I had to wait for an hour outside for them to open. I was like, because everything in Spain, like they all sleep in, they like take naps in the afternoon, like nothing's ever open. You're like, oh God. But they don't know I'm racing, they're just like, I mean, that's the fun part, is they're just like going through their normal life. And then you show up and you're like, hey, I'm racing, I need help. And then like the mechanic guy was like, he got so excited. He's like, I'm going to race next year. And so he like wrote the organizers. He's like all in, again, that's the cool part, is like, you don't have to qualify for these races. You could just show up, and so you get like such a random group of people.
I bet. Well, you're definitely going to attract some amazing odd characters in a race like this, because this is not something that everyone would do. It seems like a lot of fun, and it seems like a great community. It's that is wild. So what, like you've done a fair bit of just traveling around, and I was wondering, like, what do you think? And this is going to be a hard question. I definitely want to get back to racing, but I'm a fellow traveler. I love the random interactions you seem to get on the road with different types of unique characters. So, like, to you, what is some of like your most memorable experiences being out there, just traveling around? That's a tough question.
So many amazing ones. I mean, first things that come to mind, I did like a big tour and race in Kyrgyzstan, and people are still nomadic there. So they're like bringing their herds to the high mountains, the like high pastures in the summer, and they're like setting up yurts, and they're just living there. And that was so cool. They all ride horses. Hardly anybody has any cars, and they're so like great at riding horses. They just go straight up the hillside, and to see that people still live like that was incredible. And it was just such a different thing, that the landscape was amazing. And I like never would have known that if I wasn't into cycling and if I hadn't seen pictures of these places, So, I mean, just that you find like so many beautiful places in the world, when then everywhere I go, it's like, I think because I'm on a bike, people aren't threatened by me, and they're so curious about what I'm doing. So they're always friendly and welcoming and kind. They're like just curious about what I'm doing, and then they just want to feed me. They're like, even if we don't speak the same language, they just like wave me in and then sit me down in front of like a table full of food. And then you're like, you're not even talking, you're just eating, but that's like how people that's how people show that they care about each other. They feed each other, or they provide shelter or whatever. I mean, that's just wild that, like, I feel like I see like the goodness of the world. Because I see like all this kindness, and I've never had a problem. I've never felt in danger or afraid. People have always been good to me. So that's been really great to see. Another like kind of wild part about it is like when I used to do the longer tours, every country would be like, don't cross the border to the next country. It's terrible over there. The
Yeah.
people are bad. They will be horrible to you. And then, of course, I cross the border and they're wonderful. And then they say that about the next country. Like every single time, I'm like, what is going on with these people? Like, I wish they would just cross their own borders because then they like realize they're all good. You know, it's like, it's just
Yeah.
so funny. It's like these kind of patterns. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, probably when it gets most interesting is when things go wrong, like the weather's terrible, because then you really see like the humanity. Like I was riding down this awful stretch of road in Canada called the Highway of Tears, where like all these women have been abducted. I didn't know that before I got on it. I don't think I would have ridden there because it's just, I didn't feel like in danger, but it's just really creepy. Like there are all these signboards for like women gone missing, and I'm on a solo tour, so all these people are like, do you know you're on this really dangerous stretch of road? And I'm super freaked out by the end because I'm like getting paranoid. Why are they asking me where I'm going, you know, or are these people going to come after me? And then I'm like riding through a crazy thunder, lightning, rainstorm, and all these big trucks are passing me because it's just one highway. And I had to stop. I was like, I found like a trailer park, stopped, went into a cafe. And in the end, like these ladies that work there saw me and they're like, where did you come from? And they like come with like bath towels. And I'm like wrapped in a bath towel in like my rain suit inside like a cafe in like the middle of nowhere, Canada. And then they gave me like quarters to like dry my clothes in the laundry room and like to take a hot shower. This guy that lived there at the trailer park that looked like a crazy person, like let me have his trailer for the night and went and stayed at his friend's house. You know, it's like even people like where you think you're in the worst place in the world, they're still going to like care about how you're doing, you know. Or it's like whenever I'm like riding in Alaska where I'm from, I'm like stopped on the side of the road eating a sandwich or something, and then people always stop and just check in. They're like, oh, are you doing okay? Do you need something? Or like I think it really shows like how people actually want to make sure like the people they see are fine and that they're like they care, you know. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if you get that feeling in normal life as much.
I don't think you do. I also think that you're out there putting yourself in extreme circumstances, right? And you're pushing yourself, and you also have a good attitude. A wise man once told me, you'd be surprised how far a smile could get you. And you're putting out all this good energy into the world. And so you're going to see the best of humanity, right? There's a pendulum, but I believe in my heart that most people are really good and most people care about other people. It's just we've kind of been misled, right, through social media and whatnot, and everyone is so scared they're scared of the other, they're scared of the virus, they're scared, they live in a state of perpetual fear. And fear is the mind killer. It is it kills your ideas. It shrinks your world. It prevents you from having experiences. Whereas someone like you said, fuck that. Like, that's not how I want to live my life. You're living a very unique life, and you're a very unique person, which is why we were so interested in talking to you. You're living an amazing life. You're living your truth, and you're out having all these amazing experiences. And the most beautiful part about it is that everyone can have this same experience. All you need is a little bit of courage and definitely a lot of grit. And you could sign up for one of these races. There's no entry. You just have to show up and you just have to finish. Well, I would hope that you would want to finish. And that's kind of like what is has there ever been a race that you didn't finish?
Yes. Thanks for those super kind words. That's amazing. But yeah, there have been 2 races that I had to quit. The first was the Arizona Trail in 2015 because I had like terrible asthma and I couldn't breathe. And so I had to stop. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, I can still hear you just fine.
Froze a bit.
So
Okay, cool.
have you always had asthma? Like, or is this like
I didn't
exercise induced
know.
asthma?
I think I've always had it. I just didn't know until I started doing these extreme races, because I think I just pushed myself so much harder that my lungs basically shut down. Actually, my first long race, I was racing down the Rockies, mountain bike race, and I actually rode myself to the emergency room on like the fifth or sixth day. Oh God, it was so awful. Oh my God. I mean, from day one, I was having this like crazy breathing problems where it's like, I just couldn't get any air. It was like breathing through like a little coffee straw, and my lungs just
Oh,
had totally shut down. And I was like, but I had actually, so I'd ridden from Anchorage, Alaska, my hometown, to the start in Banff, like 2,100 miles just to get to the start. I took a week off, and then I started the race, and I was like, this is going to be the adventure of my life. And then all of a sudden I'm having these breathing problems. I'm like, I don't want to quit. I rode for 3 weeks to get here. Like, I'm not quitting. So I just kind of was just limping along. Every day I would like, it would be okay in the morning, and then it would just by progressively get terrible, where I was like almost unable to even push the pedals because I didn't have any air. And it was such a weird experience, because I was like mentally felt so fresh and so good. And then I was like moving in slow motion because I didn't have oxygen. So I rode myself to the emergency room. I got an x-ray of my chest to make sure I didn't have pneumonia. And the doctor was like, well, you don't have pneumonia, so you just have really cloudy lungs, like it's a 70-year-old. And I was like, well, that's great.
yeah.
And then he gave me a prescription for an inhaler and like an albuterol treatment. And I felt so much better. It was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. So then that night I like ride until 3 a.m. of this like notorious climb called Lava Mountain. And I was just like, yeah, because I finally felt good. And then I totally crashed the next day where I felt awful again. And I was like, oh no. But I was like, all right, if this doesn't get like better soon, I'm probably going to have to quit because it's just so awful. But then I actually like got better. And so then I could pick up the pace, ride faster, start catching people. And, but that's when I learned that I had asthma, was during that ride. I just had never had like a bad experience like that before. And then like that fall, I was doing a time trial. I was trying to set a record on the Arizona Trail, this hiking trail across the state. And I didn't bring an inhaler. I was like, oh, maybe that was just a problem that one time. And then it was a huge mistake. And so now I definitely know I need an inhaler, because my lungs just can't do it. They're like, wow, we're dead. Like, you can't move. So as long as I bring an inhaler and like kind of dose it for at least the first couple of days, then, I'm always coughing like a smoker, but at least I can still breathe. So that was my first quitting experience. The second was actually last summer. I was going back to this ride through the Rockies I'm trying to break the men's record. And, there were like horrible, horrible wildfires all in the West, like all down the route. And the air quality was just awful. And like every sunset, the sun would just be like blazing orange orb in the sky, like looked like science fiction. I was like, oh God, like it looked like the world was ending, and you couldn't see the mountains because it was like such heavy smoke. So I rode for about, I think, 5 days. And then I got to Butte, Montana, and I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I was riding directly to one of the wildfires, and it just getting closer and closer to this like center of smoke. They had like helicopters like dropping water. I mean, like fire trucks there. And I mean, so I stopped the ride, which was disappointing. But I mean, really, like the real story of it was like, oh my God, like our land is burning. Like, this place looks terrible. People couldn't even spend like a minute outside,
Yeah, and you with your you with your asthmatic lungs, like no way.
I know. I was like, I can't breathe. Like, I'm out of here. So yeah, no, it's just, I don't know. It's like the Rockies are so beautiful, but it's like now there's a smoke season. It's just how it is. And it's just kind of sad. It's like, you can't spend time in this place. It's, I don't know, crazy.
Yeah. No, definitely. That summer, it was pretty bad where I'm at in Portland, and so we get it. We get it every year. It's you don't have too much of a wildfire season in Alaska, do you?
There have been some bad ones, but not for the past couple of years. But I mean, it's even like crazy to see that up there, because it's like growing up, we had like very temperate climate, central Alaska. Like it's just basically gray and kind of drizzly all the time in the summer. Like not a very nice summer, but that's how it actually should be. And now it's like sometimes the weather gets into the 90s.
No shit.
You know, it's like, whoa, like that should not be happening, but it does. It's just, yeah, it's kind of crazy to see, but it does make you like realize like it's good to have kind of rainy, wet weather. It's good for the earth. So now I'm not like, oh, bummed out when it's like rainy, because I'm like, oh, that's actually good. It's not going to be burning, hopefully.
Yeah. So do you have any races coming up after this one that you completed in Spain? Is there another one
I do. Yeah. I'm actually doing one next week. I'm trying to, I know it's kind of a tight turnaround. I hope that I recover. I'm doing a race called the Trans-Balkan Race, and it's the first year of the event. It starts in Slovenia and goes through Croatia, Bosnia, and Montenegro, all on like a mountain bike. And I think it's just, I've ridden a bit in the Balkans and I loved it. It's like all of former Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
And every country has kind of its own character, its own language, its own culture. Definitely one of those places where they're like, don't go to the next country.
Yes.
But 100%. They're all awesome.
Yes.
Like I love them in kind of rocky, arid terrain and really good food. And I think it'll be fun. It'll be really new for me. But I'm looking forward to that. I just hope that basically right now I'm like, I'm not breathing well. My hands really hurt. My knees hurt, but I'm like, okay, maybe next week everything will be just.
Are there going to be any of your race partners, right? From this race going to the next race? Or you kind of.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. None of them are going to this one, but, it's being put on by a couple that I raced with in the past. Actually, the race I did in Kyrgyzstan, the guy was there. And then he was inspired by that race he's an Italian, but he wanted to make a race through the Balkans. So he went out with his partner and they kind of scouted it all by bikes. And they just really want people to come like ride it and see these places. And, when people have that kind of passion for putting on the event, their heart's definitely in the right place. And I want to support that, so I think it'll be fun. I'm not even worried about how I'll do. I always go into this and I'm like, I just want to finish. Of course I want to win, but like so many things can happen, that like can kind of get in the way. And really it's like the main goal is to not have to quit. Yes. Sometimes you have to, but like if I can do anything to like get it together just to kind of make it to the finish line, that's what I'll do.
Yeah. I think, what was your hardest ride? And I want to know, I know we talked about the two, but the hardest ride that you were able to complete where you had to use everything. That's really what I'm curious about.
I just did that actually. So I told you I had to quit the Arizona Trail in 2015. I just went back and finished it this April. Ooh. And it's brutal. It's a hiking trail. So it's like a lot of it's super rocky where you just have to push your bike. And it includes a hike through the Grand Canyon. Ooh. And you're not allowed to have your wheels on the ground at all. So you have to pack your bike into a backpack and carry it through. It's insane. And it's like your bike's so like long and heavy and awkward that you're just like, you feel like a pack mule. You're just like, oh, for 24 miles, 6,000 feet down across the Colorado River and then 7,000 feet up.
Who the fuck
and
made that?
Like, dear God.
Wait, I'm sorry. Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, I'm all for the right across everything else. That's just torture.
Isn't that crazy? Well, it's like
that's wild.
I mean, the thing is, like, the U.S. has very strict rules about like you can't bring your bike into wilderness. You're not supposed to ride this trail. So they made an exception for the Grand Canyon for the Arizona Trail, but you can't ride it. You could just carry it. But anywhere else, you can't even carry a bike in wilderness, which is so crazy because it's like you're allowed to ride horses. You're allowed to bring like pack goats. I mean, like is a bike going to cause more damage than an animal? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You're actually like stomping on the trail. I'm just like rolling. But yeah, I don't know. It's just part of it. And the other thing is like, yeah, it sucks to carry a bike, but there's almost no more beautiful place than the Grand Canyon. It's amazing. So even with the bike, I'm still like astounded by the beauty of the place. And it was really the thing where it's like, I had to quit that ride. So I had to go back and finish it. Because I'm like, something like that is like, I can't just let it go. It's like always on my mind. And I actually bought a house in Tucson, Arizona this year. So I live there. So I'm like, this is my state. I have to go do this. And I had a window to just go do it where, I mean, the other tough thing is it's really hard with the weather because the desert's so hot. And then it goes up to like 10,000 feet where there's still snow. So it's like getting a chance to like actually be able to travel the whole trail is kind of tricky. So I found, I was like, it was April. I was like, I'm just going to give it a go and see if I can make it. And by the end, like in the beginning, it was like, 90 degrees. And then by the end, it was like still tons of snow on the ground and all these down trees that I had to like carry my bike over because nobody had maintained the trail for the whole year.
Oh man. Wow.
But it was wild. But I got to see so much. I mean, like the timing was amazing. We're seeing like the cactus bloom, like they all had flowers, pink and white and all these bright colors and all these wildflowers. So to see all that, to see the desert so full of life was really incredible. But it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like, oh my God, this is just relentless.
How bad were your sunburns after that?
Oh my God, I was so tan. I was like, just looked like somebody that like never went inside in their life. Mm-hmm. Like, and then I have like blue eyes. So they're just like kind of like jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah. You look like a member of the Furman. I don't know if you've seen the movie Dune or read the books, but,
yeah, just out there. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing with this trail is like, there's like only somewhere to buy food every 100 miles, which it would take me like more than a day to get there. So I was like packing like whole cheesecakes like in individual pieces. Cause I was like, well, at least it's like super dense with calories. And I was like, it always tastes good. But like this stuff I was eating was just like, totally insane. Because I couldn't find food for so long. And then water's also super limited. So it was, everything about it was hard. It was like never ending challenges.
Yeah. Do you use, I have a platypus gravity, water filtration system. Do you carry something like that with you just in case you run across a stream or something? You can just go ahead and filter the water.
I just drink it.
Oh my God. You're going to get Giardia. Have you had Giardia yet?
No.
You're insane.
I started drinking. I was doing this tour from Alaska down to the start of the Rockies race in 2015. And I had one of those like UV filter pens.
Yeah. Those are good.
And I was like using it and I was like, I don't even think this is doing anything. So I just sent it home. And after that, I was like, I'm just going to drink the water.
No,
whatever water I find, I'm just drinking it. And I've done that ever since.
You're okay. Well, I don't, you know what? I'm not going to hate
risky.
It's super fucking risky. You should not do this. Like you need to just get the pen. You don't want Giardia. You do not want this. No.
I know. And then people that have had it have been like telling me about their symptoms. I'm like, oh, that sounds awful. Yeah, and then I'm still just drinking the water. I'm like, meh.
At this point, you've probably got to be slightly immune to it.
Yeah,
if you've just been doing this literally all over the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like in Kyrgyzstan by like a flock of sheep filling up water. I mean, that's disgusting.
This is what I'm trying to say. Like, you're not always going to have water from like a quick moving stream. So like,
it's not like Alaska.
Yeah, no, or Oregon or wherever the PNW. Like, listen, I get it. I've done it. Of course, I've had drank water.
You get thirsty. You're like, I just need water.
Can you please just put the pen back in the water, get a water filtration system.
Oh man, I'll
So,
think about it, but I'm
please
not going to do it.
I know you're not. I know that you're not going to do that. And the problem is, like, normally I'm the irresponsible person, but by far you are way more irresponsible than me, and I love it. I love it. Okay, so what are you doing for recovery? Are you doing the sauna, cold? Doing cold ice baths, anything like that?
No, not really, because we're in Spain right now, so I don't really have like access to that. But I'm just resting and eating a lot, and yeah, not much else. I brought some like kind of CBD Tiger Balm lotion that feels good. But at least like this race was all on road, and they have really like smooth roads here, so I feel like it was less pain and impact than a lot of the mountain bike stuff, because that stuff just so rough, that it hurts a lot more. So I think the recovery will be pretty fast. Okay. I hope so, because I need to be ready in a week.
Jeez, and these races take weeks. That's the crazy thing. How long you've ridden 2,000 miles, 1,800 from Oregon to Virginia?
It was actually 4,200.
Oh, I was way off. What?
Yeah, that was the longest race I've ever done. It's called the Trans Am, and it took me 18 days, 10 minutes. So that's an average of 237 miles a day for 18 days. Oh, it was mind-numbing.
Was that all
people
road?
Race around the world. It was all road, and it was a heat wave. It hit 106 like half of the days. Talk about sunburn. Holy shit. My skin like burnt and peeled off twice. I had blisters. It was horrible. I was like, this is insane. And starting from where we started in Astoria, Oregon, and then went a little bit down the coast and then across, then through like John Day, Eastern Oregon. And it was just hot as hell. I think we rode through something called like Hell's Canyon.
Yes, you did.
And I was like, this is real. Like, this is terrible. But there was like a stream of water. And this is like, when I got to that point, it was just so hot. And that's when I was like, I just started jumping in creeks with all of my clothes on, even my shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, I felt like I was going to lose my mind. It was so hot. And then I'd be like soaking wet for like, half an hour and cooled down. And then everything would just dry and evaporate. And then I would just be like, I'm going to die out here. It was so hot. And I think, it was just the season. It was early June and it was a heat wave. And that was kind of the luck of it. But yeah, that race was my first road race. The last road race I did since this one last week, because I usually ride mountain or dirt roads. But I actually ended up winning the whole thing. I caught the guy in first on the final night and beat him to the finish. It was like the most exciting finish of my life. I was like cutting sleep to catch him, and I got him. Oh man. It doesn't get much better than that, because like you spend, for a race that's 4,000 miles, it's like you spend a lot of time alone, because you're not like riding the exact same pace as somebody else, or they're sleeping somewhere else, or everybody's kind of making their own plans, so you end up spending a lot of time alone. So actually to like get to race somebody to the finish was the best. Oh,
I bet. Yeah, you were actually like neck and neck with this dude towards. Yeah. Oh wow, that would be nice.
It was so cool. Yeah, for like probably like 20 miles, and we still had like 130 miles to go, and I was just sprinting like it was like the finish line. So I was like, this is my chance to get him. And I did.
Oh my goodness. This is wild. That is, how do you overcome that? How do you keep going? When most people want to quit, right? And what you're doing is you have blisters, your skin's peeling.
Oh my God.
How do you keep going?
A lady at the gas station like gifted me a chapstick. No. I guess because my lip was like split open because the sun is just so harsh. I looked like a train wreck. I actually at one point got a flat tire and I was fixing it, and this couple would not believe that I hadn't crashed because I looked so bad.
They're trying to take you. They're trying to take you to the hospital.
You crashed. And I was like, no, I just got a flat tire. I just look like this. Oh, God. But But yeah, keep going. It's like something like that. It did feel pretty awful sometimes. Like those were pretty tough conditions, but I'm like, well, at some point I thought this was a good idea, so I better just stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm not going to like ride 5 days and quit, because then I know I'm going to have to go back and do it again. Like that's a lot of work that I already put in. So I've got to just go for it. And then, it's like, yeah, there are some hours that are awful, but then it's like you see a beautiful sunset and you feel amazing, and it makes it like all kind of make sense again. So it's kind of these waves of emotion where it's like these amazing highs of riding through beauty and feeling incredible. And then like the lows can be pretty rough. But I guess over time, I've just realized like I try not to get too deep into a hole of like, because you can tell yourself like, oh, you're not good enough, you're not doing a good job. But it's like, that's not going to help. It's not going to make me ride any faster. It's like if I feel awful, I just try to ride the best I can, and then know that, maybe an hour later I'll feel better.
Yeah.
So it's been a kind of a process of figuring out like how to keep feeling positive while all this is happening. But I've gotten better at it, and I actually am like enjoying myself most of the time.
I think that there's something to be said about the waves that you mentioned, right? Like if you look at, we got 1.5 million year old software in our brains, and we're curious by nature. We like to explore. And so the life that you're living, you're able to you're seeing, you're also not stuck behind a screen. So your field of vision is much, much broader than normal human beings. So you're able to see, like, you're able to pick something on that horizon and say, like, that's where I need to get to. And it might suck. And it might suck right now, but you know what? The sun's coming up, and I got, there's going to be a creek here according to the map. Maybe I'll stop at the creek, get my feet wet, and I'm just going to keep going. So you always have an attainable goal that's on that horizon, and it's very clear to you because you're in, our most natural state, which is in nature. That's where you spend most of your time. So it's like it's amazing that you're living this lifestyle. But that, I'm what interests me is what makes people tick, and how you persevere and how you can show grit and character. Because I'm looking to incorporate any of that into my life to be a better human. And from what you're telling me, I got to start racing bikes, man. Like this, I'm in.
No
this seems
way.
awesome.
I told you to buy a mountain bike, Rick. Let's go. I've got a cyclocross thing. Let's do it, dude.
I might do it.
Yeah, you should definitely. Everybody loves the feeling of riding a bike. It's like being a kid. You get on that first pedal stroke, you feel the wind go through your hair, and you're like, yeah, like, you're about to go do something fun, and I feel like it never gets old. Like I have that feeling every single time, and that's like something that I really want to share with people. It's like, you don't have to race, but I think everybody will have fun riding a bike. It's just a fun feeling. It's a fun thing to do. And it's like, low commitment. You can do whatever you want with it. So I definitely think you should ride.
Oh, definitely. It's been a minute. I was actually in Virginia with my brother and my girlfriend. We rode the Reaper Trail, and it's like an 18-mile bike ride.
Cool.
Downhill. That was last summer though. I'm buying a bike. Damn it! This is John. It's settled.
It's the season. It's almost June.
Yeah, it's time.
And you live in Portland, bike city of the U.S.
It is.
They all ride bikes. The cars even stop for you there. It's incredible.
Yes, this is true. Have you had
nowhere else do they do that?
Have you had some pretty sketch moments? Like, have you been hit or?
I have, but a long time ago. Like kind of those early days, I was hit twice, but nothing too bad. Like just kind of knocked down. The first one, the girl, it was like a young woman, and she was so terrified. She felt so bad that I was actually calming her down. Well, I was like, it's okay. She's like hyperventilating. Oh my God. Because what a terrible experience that is to hit somebody. Yeah. And then the second one, I was riding to work, and they didn't even stop.
No, they just kept fucking hit and run. They hit and ran your ass.
Yeah, they just hit me. I went down, and they just drove away. And I was like,
fucking serious?
What? I was like, are you kidding me? And then I'm like going to work at this brewery, and I get there. I got hit by a car, and it's totally dead. And they're like, oh, you can go home.
Oh, shit.
And then the bartender's like, oh, I'll buy you a beer. And the beers for like employees were like $1. I was like, oh, thanks a lot. That's unreal, you know, but that was like the last time, and that's like 15 years ago or something. So fortunately I haven't been hit since, but yeah, it's always, I mean, that's definitely the biggest risk as a cyclist. You know, people are always like, oh, aren't you afraid of running into bears? And I'm like, no,
you're from Alaska,
getting hit
dude.
by a car.
Yeah.
I mean, really though, it's like, oh, you like people's fears, like animals or, you know, camping. But I'm like, no, the reality is like cars are the biggest threat. You know?
Yeah, 100% cars and like you're from Alaska, so you're hanging out with brown bears, moose. There's wolves up there.
But they're so cool to see. You know, it's like these big animals are actually there. Like right now, I'm in Europe, and they're like all terrified of animals because there aren't any here. But I'm like, it's actually really cool to see them.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, they don't want to like threaten you. I mean, the animal would have to be like a psychopath to like try to attack you. You know, like people, they're just kind of doing their thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited. I'm actually heading to Alaska for the first time this summer, going on a fishing trip. So I am.
Oh, fun.
Hopefully I'll get to see a grizzly bear and maybe.
Yeah, where are you going?
Ketchikan or around Ketchikan area.
Yeah, cool. Southeast.
Yep, southeast.
Oh, you'll definitely see black bears for sure. There's so many there.
There are hopefully any grizzlies though.
I don't know in Southeast. Yeah, actually it's possible.
Okay,
that's a cool area. It's like a rainforest.
Yes.
Crazy huge trees.
I'm pumped. Yeah. So I'm just I just had to buy a freezer recently because I'm planning on just slaying these salmon, bringing it back.
Yeah. That'd be so good.
Oh,
that's super cool.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, like I can't get over how awesome a person you are and how you're very inspiring. And if you're ever in Oregon or Portland again, let me know. I'd love to take you to dinner, John, and I'd love to see you. And I really appreciate you being on the podcast. If you have, this is your time to shout out any sponsors, or do you have a social media or anything like that?
I do. It's just my name, Lael Wilcox. And my wife takes all the pictures, and she's a photojournalist, so they're really, really good. And we've got tons of good videos on YouTube that are all free. That's the main thing, is like I'm really motivated to share my story, because like I kind of fell into this. You know, I just did it because that's what I wanted to do. But I'm like, people don't have to do these really extreme versions, but I feel like they'd enjoy the biking part, biking in adventure, going for an overnight. You know, this is something that should be very attainable to a lot of people and has really changed my life. So love to share that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again. And I wish you luck on your upcoming race. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So good to meet you. And would love to meet you in Portland.
Absolutely. We'll you heard it here first, folks. I'm buying a mountain bike. Hold me to that. I'm gonna start riding. I'm inspired. I'm fired up. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please leave us 5 stars on iTunes. It helps the show grow. And we'll see you next week, folks. Peace.